Hi, this is Dan Heisman. We're continuing with our series of videos to help you play chess better. I was just playing a game against Beth O, and I was recording it when all of a sudden something cut out my internet connection and it forfeited the game from me, so now I have to start all over again. Luckily, I wasn't too far into the game. It would have been real annoying if it did that in the middle of the game. All right, let's try again. Beth O, this time on black. It's playing d4. I could try to transpose and avoid the book, or we could just play a book King's Indian or something. So let's play a King's Indian. Bishop g7, e4, d6, f3, Simish. All right, I'm not going to play the pawn sack variation. That's good for equality, but I'm playing for a win. So maybe we'll play the queen sack line. Castle. Bishop e3, e5. We've had this line before, but maybe not on YouTube. Knight h5, queen d2, queen h4 check, g3, knight takes g3, queen f2, knight takes f1, queen takes h4, knight takes e3. I think Stockfish says the best move is king f2. How about that? King f2, better than the old book king e2. All right, so knight takes c4. b3 is reasonable. All right, I have no choice. I have to play knight to b6. Okay. Queen e7. All right, so now I have to start thinking. I can play f5 and try to break it open. I could play knight to a6 and then knight to c5. Knight a6 guards the c7 pawn. That's always helpful. If he plays knight b5, I can play bishop d7. Probably okay, followed by rook fd8. So let's see, do I have much choice? I can put a bishop on d7 right away to keep the knight off of b5. So bishop d7 is a candidate, knight a6 is a candidate. I don't see that it makes a big difference. The difference is on knight a6 he can play knight b5, but I don't think knight b5 is his best move anyway. If I play bishop d7 first, I have it ties down my bishop a little bit, although not really because my bishop's not going anywhere better than d7 anyway. So bishop d7, knight a6, doesn't look like there's a big difference. I'm leaning toward bishop d7 right now. But I don't see anything wrong. Knight a6, knight b5, bishop d7. He can play a4. I can't play bishop takes b5. A takes b5 hits the knight. Knight c5, queen takes c7. Knight d3 check. Doesn't seem to do anything. So I don't think it matters that much. If I play bishop d7 and he plays a4, and I play knight a6 and he plays a5, I can play rook a to e8. He moves the queen back to g5 or h4, and then I play knight to c8. That's probably okay. Which one is more flexible, knight a6 or bishop d7? Knight a6, knight b5, bishop d2, a4. Threatens a5, I can play rook a e8. Should be okay. So they both look all right. My gut feeling is that bishop d7 is a little better. I don't want to take a lot of time on this move. All right, let's play bishop d7. King to g2. All right, so that threatens knight h3, knight g5 or something. Now I want to get my knight on b8 out anyway. So if I play knight a6 and he plays a4, before he plays a5, I have time to play like rook a e8 followed by f5. I could also play f6, threatening rook e8. That's an interesting move to trap the queen. f6. He makes a move somewhere. I wonder if that wins the game already. Jeez. F6. Now that my bishop's guarding c7, f6 followed by rook e8. What's he going to do? Knight b5, rook e8. Well, on knight b5, I can just play bishop takes b5. And when he plays queen takes b7, I'm just up a piece, and I could play... So f6, knight b5, if rook e8, queen takes e8, bishop takes e8, knight takes c7, knight a6 or d7, knight takes a8, knight takes a8, and I win a queen and a knight for 2 rooks and a pawn. That's a pretty big lead. Or I could just play bishop takes b5. So f6 first. Now I could play knight a6 first, but then he saves the queen. So f6 seems like the right idea. I've got the bishop guarded twice. If he plays a4, I can play rook e8 and win. Knight b5 followed by knight. I don't see what he's doing here. It looks like f6 just traps the queen. But of course, if you see a move that might win, you don't play it right away. You double check. I think he's got to play knight b5. But after knight b5, bishop takes b5, queen takes c7. I could even just play... I could give him the d pawn. I could guard the b pawn and give him the d pawn, or vice versa. I could play rook d8, and then he plays queen takes b7. And then I play knight on b to d7, followed by knight c5 with a fantastic game. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that f6 is winning here. I don't see what I'm missing. f6 traps the queen. Well, I haven't done that well against Betho lately. When I say I haven't done that well, I mean I won like almost 200 games in a row, and now I haven't. So I consider that not doing as well. It's not like he's beating me he or she is beating me every game. It is beating me every game. All right, so let's play f6. See what happens. f4. All right, well, that doesn't bother me. Rook e8. And the queen is just trapped. Queen takes e8, bishop takes e8. If he plays pawn takes pawn, I get a queen for nothing. Queen takes f6, doesn't work. Every other move doesn't work. All right, rook e8 it is. All right, we got to recapture. All right, now I'm up 2 pieces and 2 pawns for a rook. So I just have to get my pieces out and I win. Guarding all the squares. His e-pawn's going to be a little weak. I could break with c6 right away. I could take either way. Take with the knight, strong. Take with the bishop is strong. If I play c6, I take with the bishop. He plays knight to d5. I can always take it. Everything wins here. Knight a6 wins. Knight d7, knight 8 d7 wins. Knight a6 is good. c6 is good. I kind of like c6. It looks like the right idea. As I said, it doesn't make much difference. Let's play c6. He takes there. All right. I don't mind opening the line for the rook. I think I want to take with the e-pawn. If he then takes my c-pawn, I take with the knight. If he plays knight b5, or I could take with the pawn and then guard the d-pawn with either the bishop or whatever. All right, so let's take with the f-pawn. Okay, he takes there. Okay, again, everything's safe. I can take with the knight and then play knight d4. If he plays knight b5, I can play rook d8, followed by a6. If he plays rook to d1, I could play bishop f8, Or I could just take with the pawn and then play d5 and get a passed pawn. That's pretty good too. They all look good. Don't think it makes much difference. If I take with the pawn, he plays rook d1. I play d5, e takes d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5. Knight takes d5, rook takes d5, bishop c6 wins. So that means after b takes c6, rook d1, d5, my pawn is safe. And I don't think he has anything. All right, let's just take with the pawn. All right, so he lets me push the pawn. I could even bring the knight out first, knight to a6 or knight to d7. I can still play rook d8 or d5 when he plays rook to d1. Bishop f8 is also possible. I'm looking to just push that pawn right down the board. And knight a6 with the idea of knight c5 looks good. I could play knight d7, but then my d-pawn's a little bit weak. Then I can't play bishop c6. All right, so let's play knight a6. We'll come in through c5 or b4. If he doubles the rooks, he's not going anywhere. D5, takes. And my pieces are getting active. I'm guarding f7 and f8 quite nicely. All right, let's play d5. He doubles his rooks. Okay, I'm getting ready to push that pawn right down the board. I could play knight to c7 to e6. And then to f4 or d4. It'd be nice to be able to guard the f7 square a second time so I can move the bishop. Doesn't matter, I don't think. Knight c7, knight e6 looks good. Knight c5, knight e6 looks also good. I don't think there's a big difference which place I go to. Knight c5 does hit the e4 pawn, forces him to do something. I guess that's a slight advantage to that. Again, as long as he's not playing rook f8 mate, I'm okay. All right, so knight c5. He takes the pawn. I could take with a knight, I could take with a pawn. Nice to have connected passed pawns here. Don't see why I wouldn't want to do that. All right, let's just take with the pawn. Rook g3, what a nice guy. All right, well, now that his rooks aren't doubled, I could play bishop c6 with the idea of d4 check and get those pawns rolling down the board. I'm not worried about rook f7 anymore, and I could also play rook f8 and trade a pair of rooks. Just got to be really careful, that's all. When you're winning easily, you're very careful. All right, so he plays b4. I could play d4 check. If he moves the king, where would I put my knight? I could play knight e4 and trade it off. I could just play knight e6 right away here. Everything wins. d4 check. If he plays king to... Well, it really doesn't matter. I don't see anything wrong with playing d4 check here. All right, let's play d4 check. King h3. All right, so where should my knight go? I can go to e6. I can go to e4 and trade off. Everything's good. If I take his knight, he takes my knight. That's not bad, but that doesn't seem to be the best idea. So knight e6 or knight e4, they're both good. Knight e6 just looks a little bit more accurate. His knight doesn't have a lot of great squares. If he plays b5, I can play bishop b7. 7 . Yeah, let's just play knight e6. Can't be bad. Okay, knight e6. He goes back, so that knight's a little awkward. Now I could trade rooks. I could play bishop b5 and pin the knight to the rook on f1 and threaten to trade off and then play knight f4 check. I don't think I need to do that. Could play rook d8 so I can play d3, and when the knight moves I can play knight f4 check with almost with a mating attack. That does look kind of nice. Alright, I don't think it matters that much. Let's just play rook to d8, get that rook in the game. Okay, he hits the square again. So I can play e4. If he plays knight to g4, threatening knight f6 check. I can play knight to g5 check is interesting at that point. But everything wins. I mean, knight f6 check is not much of a threat. e4's got to be good. I could play bishop to b5 now, pinning the knight. How would he save it? If he plays rook e1, I have bishop takes e2, rook takes e2, knight f4 check. What other moves guard that knight? If he moves the knight, I take off the rook. Looks to me like bishop b5 is winning more material. Bishop b5. I just don't see any great. He could play knight g4. Bishop takes e2, knight f6 check. Bishop takes f6, rook takes f6, and I win. All right, well, this is looking pretty good. All right, let's play. There's a million ways to win this. Bishop to b5. We'll play that. Knight there blockading. Okay. So now my pawns can start running down the board with e4. And then he still has a lot of the same problems. e4, knight f4. Knight takes f4. And he doesn't have any great ways to take back. All right. Here we come. Knight back. Okay, so I can keep pushing the pawn now. d3, knight c3, d2, knight takes b5, d1 queen wins the exchange. But it's better to just keep the bishop on the board. Or I could trade the bishop off first and then push the pawn. That works. Everything seems to be working. You don't have to work things out. When you're winning, it's not so important how you win. It's more important to make sure you don't let the opponent back in the game. So d4, oh, d4, he can't play knight c3 because the bishop takes c3. All right, well, that makes it pretty easy then. So just d3. And he just guards the knight. Okay, so, again, everything is just winning here. Well, let's just take off the knight. Can't hurt. We'll take it off. He takes with the knight. All right, let's look at rook to d3 check, rook to d3 check, knight g3, knight g5 check, followed by knight f3 with possible mating attack. Looks like everything's winning here. Rook d3 check, rook g3, rook takes g3, knight takes g3, bishop takes f1. Yeah. All right, let's play rook d3 check. King up. All right, so now I've got moves like g5 check, king to g4. If he plays king h5, I have bishop e8 check, king g4. Everything's winning here. Or I could just get my knight in the attack. Knight on b to d5 looks pretty good. With that extra knight in the attack. Threatening knight e3. Yeah, I mean, everything's winning. All right, let's play knight d5. Rook f2. Okay. Well, again, I'm looking at g5 check. I could play bishop f6 check. He probably has to take it with the rook. Then I could take back with a knight. So g5 check, everything wins. g5 check wins. Bishop f6 check wins. Getting the bishop on b5 into the mating attack with bishop to d7 or e8 is probably good. Everything's good. Rook to f3 to block off the rook. He can't take. I take back. I fork his rook and his knight. Threatening maybe g5 check again, followed by knight f6 check. Yeah, I mean, everything's winning here. Let's do that. That's kind of cute. Rook f3. All right. The mating attack's looking a little stronger here. g5 check. King. It doesn't matter. g5 check's got to be a good move. Let's just play it. g5 check. King there. All right, both knights can go to f4, but I want to move the knight on e6 so the bishop on... Well, the other knight's guarding the pawn, that's true. So knight on 5 to f4 check. King to g5, h5 check, king to f4. And then he's threading my e-pawn. That's funny. How about the other knight check? Other knight check, king to g5, bishop d7 check, king takes g5. So when one knight moves, it unguards the pawn, and when the other knight moves... So knight on 5 to g4 check. I could just play h5 first. Can't take it. Threatening knight f4 mate. And if he takes on f3 when I take back, I'm still threatening a mate. If he plays knight f5, I can't move the knight. What am I saying? All right, let's just play h5. Play that move first. All right, rook takes. So now knight checks on f4. Rook takes f4. Knight takes f4 is mate. That's cute because I just sacked the rook. And I'm mating with the knight and the pawns. Knight f4 check. Rook takes f4, only legal move. Knight takes f4, checkmate. All right, when you see a checkmate like that, don't play it right away. Take your time. Make sure it's really mate. Knight f4 check. Rook takes f4. Rook takes f4. Knight takes f4, mate. All right. Check. And knight takes f4 is mate.
Checkmate.
There we go. All right, so if we go back over this game real quickly, this is a line that Bronstein came up with in the King's Indian to sack. It's interesting that to sack the queen. It's interesting that Betho played that improvement King f2 that Stockfish says is probably winning for white. This is probably why grandmasters don't play this line anymore. This move king to f2 is, I think, the improvement. Knight takes c4. I think b3 is okay. You could also play like rook to b1 or rook to c1, I think. So b3, knight b6. And here, white should play like rook to c1 or knight to h3. Let's see what Stockfish says about this. Stockfish says knight h3, and white is up 1.7 pawns, which is way too much for grandmasters to play in a game. After his move queen e7, Stockfish says, I should now play knight 8 d7 with equality. So I play bishop d7. Computer says, that's not as good. He can just bring the queen back to h4 with a 1 pawn advantage. So he plays king g2, and the computer says, ooh, that loses the queen to f6, which I play. And now it says, yeah, that move I analyzed, knight b5, is as good as any. It gives knight b5, knight a6, knight takes c7, knight takes c7, queen takes d6, knight b5, queen e7, rook a e8, queen to b4, rook to c8 with a -5 for black. So as I said when I was analyzing, I'm either winning a piece on knight b5 or I'm winning the queen. He plays f4. Computer says I should trap the queen with knight c8 instead. All right, so I play rook e8. He takes, I take. Now it's just mop up. You know, now I'm way ahead in material. Rook there. Computer says I should play e takes f4. c6. Everything's winning, of course. It says I should take with the d pawn. Take that way. He takes. It says the best move is to take with the knight. I take with the pawn. Knight e2, knight a6, rook f3, d5, best move, rook doubles, knight c5, best move, pawn takes, rook g3, bishop c6, computer says, yeah, that's good, b4, d4 check, best move, king h3, now it gives knight e6, best move, way to go, Dan, knight back, rook d8, right there, bishop b5, best move. Knight d3, e4, best move. Knight ec1, d3, best move. Rook g2. Take the knight. Computer says, oh, don't be greedy. Play knight d5 with a 17 pawn advantage. Okay, so I take, he takes. Rook d3 check. King h4. Now it says rook e3 is the best move. I didn't even look at that move. Knight d5, it says I'm up 16 pawns. Rook up, and now it says rook f3, best move. Way to go, Dan. Rook f3, says he should take and let me fork him. Knight g3, now he says it's mate in 3 with bishop f6 check. All right, well, unfortunately I played a different check. Now that was mate in 4 instead. I play there, and it says now it's mate in 2. Rook takes, check is as good as any.
Checkmate.
And checkmate. So I didn't actually play the technique that badly, considering I was playing pretty fast. Well, that was a fun game, but it wasn't too competitive, which is nice to win some quicker games once in a while. Hopefully you enjoyed the game. Please subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends about it. If you haven't checked out my earlier videos on all kinds of subjects, I've got endgames, I've got openings, I've got thought process, I've got time management. You name it, break moves, positional play, famous games, some of my best games, games I play out loud against the computer. It's all here on the channel, on YouTube. Hope to see you next time. Bye.